Hello, welcome to Thursday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. On screen today we have a puzzle by Richard Stolk, the brilliant constructor from the Netherlands. Richard is one of those constructors who is admired by other constructors, and I think there's no greater praise you can pay to somebody who constructs puzzles than they have the respect, the absolute respect to their peers. And yeah, so we should be in for a treat. This one appeared on Logic Masters Germany very recently. It has a 98% approval rating as we speak, so it ought to be a very interesting puzzle. Now, a few things to mention before we get started. Firstly, regarding yesterday's video in which I got pranked by Mark, I will have my revenge. Now, moving on to other matters, Patreon reward puzzle. Those of you who are patrons of the channel, we do a bonus puzzle, and it's the start of July now, so we need to do that. We were thinking maybe we would make it our Sudoku puzzle hunt, which obviously came out last weekend and did contain 8 puzzles. But then we thought, actually, what we'll do is we'll do a special Queen Sudoku puzzle. And the reason we've done a Queen Sudoku puzzle for you is that our chess app has just had a big update, including the Queen Sudokus. So if you haven't refreshed your app recently, then go and do that. You'll find a whole load of new puzzles there, and we hope very much that you enjoy them. And of course, if you are a patron of the channel, you can find this bonus Queen Sudoku on Patreon as we speak. What else? Oh, I should mention as well, there's also been an update to our classic Sudoku app, so there are more puzzles there as well. And one question we sometimes get on the Queen Sudokus, I've had 2 or 3 of these on Twitter already, is the Queen Sudoku rule, which is a rule that basically says that the 9s operate like chess queens. So you could never have a 9, for example, in this puzzle. You couldn't have a 9 in either of those, none of those 3 squares, because a chess queen here would be able to move to those 3 squares. Now, that only applies to the 9s in the Queen Sudokus. Don't try and do it with the 1s, the 2s, the 3s. It won't work. It only applies to the 9s. Yeah, so just bear that in mind when you're solving them. Now, anything else to mention? Oh yes, something quite important. Those of you who've been trying our Sudoku puzzle hunt, I know a lot of you have been talking to each other on our Patreon page about it. There are literally hundreds of messages going backwards and forwards. So we thought that actually it might make more sense if there was an easier way for patrons to have those sorts of discussions. And over on our fan Discord server, the mods there have helped us out immensely. They have created a special patron-only channel on the Cracking the Cryptic Discord server. So if you are a $3 patron of the channel or higher, you will have automatic access to that channel, and you can go over there and exchange views with your other patrons, and it's already got a lot of interest. There are a lot of patrons there already, so if you want to find other people who are interested in Sudoku and share real-time messages with them, that is totally possible now. And what Mark and I will almost certainly do over the next month is that we'll let you know when, but we'll drop in there and do a Q&A or something like that. So yeah, I think it's a really nice idea and a way of expanding the community content further. So yeah, if you are a patron of the channel, a $3 patron and above, there's a little bit of a bonus there. Now let's get on to this. What is this puzzle called? It's called Confetti Sums Sudoku, and these are the rules as Richard has written them. We have normal Sudoku rules apply. In all cases where the sum of 2 horizontally or vertically neighbouring digits is A, B or C, a white, grey or black circle is given. A, B and C are different, and finding their values is part of the puzzle. Okay, so we have to work out what each of these numbers represent. So if, for example, we found out that these 2 squares added up to 8, these 2, then we would know every grey domino in the grid would have to add up to 8. And yeah, that's all there is to it. So if you want to play the puzzle, I definitely recommend it. Richard's puzzles are brilliant. You click on the link under the video to play along. And with that, let's get cracking. And how do we start this? We've only got 4 given digits. That's not many. The 3s are the only repeated given digits. And they don't interact in any particularly useful way, look. So probably we have to use the dots to start. Okay, well there are 2 places that I'm tempted to look. One is the central box because it's got quite a constellation of different coloured dots there. 4 white dots, 1 black dot. The other is box 1 where we've got 3 grey dots entirely contained within the box. So let me just have a think about this. So presumably we can't make a grey dot too small, because if we do, we're going to run out of... The maximum I can make those 2 squares would be 8 and 9. So the maximum I can make those 3 squares is 20. So these they simply have to be higher than 6. Well, we've got a 3 here already, so they can't be 7 or 8, because there are only 3 different ways of making 7 and 8. 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 4, and obviously with the 3 unavailable, that wouldn't work. Same's true for 8, 1, 7, 2, 6, and 3, 5. So we know that these are at least equal to 9. And what else do we know? Ah, of course. Yeah, we in fact know that they are definitely not 9. Oh, that's really lovely. It's just a lovely execution of an idea, this. So this is using the negative constraint straight away. Let's try and, if we try and make these squares add up to 9, the point is that none of these yellow squares could contain a 6 then, because if there was a 6 on one of them, there would have to be a 3 next to it, and there's already a 3 in the bottom of the box. So we'll fill these 6 cells up with 1, 8, 2, 7 and 4, 5, and we'll be left with a 3 and a 6 to place. And wherever I put the 6, it's going to have to be next to the 3, which would require a grey dot. So these are not 9. And it's going to work the same. It's going to work the same way for 10 and 11, isn't it? Because 10, there's 4 ways of making 10, so I can't put a 7 on the grey dot. The 7 will have to go in one of those 2 squares, which will break. Same with 8. There are 4 ways of 11. There are 4 ways of making 11, so I can't put an 8 in the grey dots. If I put the 8 down here, it should have a grey dot next to it. So these have to be 12. Or higher. Well, they can't be 12 because there are only 3 ways of making 12, and one of them uses 3 and 9. So they're not 12. Oh, they are 13 then. They must be 13 because 14, there are only 2 ways of making 14. 5, 9 and 6, 8. So actually, grey dots are equal to 13. So these 3 squares equal, these 6 squares equal 39. Therefore, as we know, the whole box adds up to 45. That's what you get if you add numbers 1 to 9. Those 2 squares, therefore, have got to be 1 and 2. So greys are 13. So we've got 13 there, 13s in both of those squares. We've got a white dot here. So the maximum value I could make this square would be 8. It can't be 9. So if this is 8, the maximum value of a white square, of a white dot, sorry, is 10. So if this was 2 and that was 8, that's the biggest total we can get to. So white dots are 10 or less. Let's delete that. That's going to confuse me if I leave it in there. 10 or less. So, but look, now we can maybe use the middle. Yeah, these white dots can't be a very small number because we'll run out of room. For example, I mean, obviously they can't be 4 because the only way of making 4 is with 1 and 3, and we'd get an immediate clash. Now, when we get to 5, we can't. That doesn't work either, because we can make one of these 2, 3, one of them 1, 4. But then what would I put in this square or this square? I would have no option. It's the same for 6. If I try and make 6, there's only 2 ways of making 6, 1, 5 and 2, 4. And there would be nothing to put in either of those squares, which would have to be filled with either 1, 2, 4 or 5, because they are part of white dots as well. So actually, white dots are, they're 10 or less, and they're higher than 6. So they're 7, 8, 9 or 10. 7, 8, 9 or 10. No, they can't be 7 or 8. They can't be 7 or 8. It's a similar thing to this. It's using the negative constraint again. It's just brilliant setting. It really is. So let's think about 7 and why 7 doesn't work. There are 3 ways of making 7 with 2 cells. We could use 1, 6, 2, 5 or 3, 4. Now, let's just fill those in somehow. So let's say that was 3, 4, that was 2, 5. So that would mean these 2 squares, which we know have to be part of a 7 sum in 2 cells, have to be 1, 6. They both would have to be 1, 6. That's the only digits available. But now, why is there not a white dot connecting this domino? These add up to 7. So there should be a white dot. So that, i.e. 7 doesn't work. And it works exactly the same way for 8, because there's only 3 ways of making 8. 1, 7, 2, 6, 3, 5. So now we know that the white dot is either 9 or 10. And the problem with both of those is that there are 4 ways of making them. So I don't think we can repeat the trick on this box here. So if it was 10, this would have... No, it's still open. But now, look at the way we're developing the logic of this puzzle. We looked at this box, then we've looked at this box. Now I'm going to look at this box. And I'm going to use the fact I know that this adds up to 13, but doesn't include an 8. So this has to be 4, 9 or 6, 7. Now, why is that important? Well, it's crucial. It's crucially important because 4, 9 uses up 2 of the ways you could make a 10 total in 2 cells. 4, 6 and 1, 9 would be ruled out. 2, 8 is ruled out. So I could make one of these dominoes 3, 7, but the other one would have no possible value. Now you can see it works exactly the same way if I try 6 and 7 there. This uses up 4, 6 and 3, 7. 2, 8's used. I can put 1, 9 in one of those, but I have no option for the other one. So this square, well, what this tells us is that the white dots don't add up to 10. The white dots add up to 9. And we can use the same logic. Yes, okay, so if they add up to 9, we can now use the same logic to rule out 6, 7 in this box, because 6 and 7 and 8 would therefore not be available to make 2 dominoes add up to 9. So I'd only have at my disposal a 4 and a 5, and the other one would break. So this is why 4, 9 is so nice here. Because, of course, this only takes one of the ways of making 9 away. It only takes 4 and 5. So these have got to be 2, 7 and 3, 6. There's a 3 here. So we get a 3, 6 and a 2, 7 pair. 14 minutes into the video, still no digits placed. Those have got to be 1 and 5. I don't even think I've been that slow. And I can't blame Mr. Goodliff for this one, because he didn't recommend this puzzle to me, so it's not his fault. Now let's have a think. What does this mean? Well, oh no. I was thinking maybe I could... This grey domino is a bit limited. It can't be 4, 9, so it's got to be 5, 8 or 6, 7. and then that attaches to a white domino. So this can't be 6, look, because if it's 6, I'd have to put a 3 here, and I can't. So this isn't 6, so this isn't 7. And this can't be 5, because then I'd have to put a 4 there, and I can't. So this is actually not 5, therefore that's not 8. So this has to be 1 or 2. No, that's no use, is it? What am I doing wrong? 3s must be in one of those squares. No, I can't see how to resolve that. So white dots add up to 9. This is tricky, isn't it? Oh, white dots add up to 9. There are 2 white dots in row 8 of the grid, look. Now that is very powerful, because we can't put 3, 6 or 2, 7 into either of them, because then we'd remove these options in these 2 squares. So these 4 squares have to be 1, 8 or 4, 5. And that, look, one of those squares is therefore a 4, and we get our first digit in the grid. That's a 9, that's a 4. Oh, and now we can use the negative constraint again, because if this is a 4, this one can't be a 5, because if I make that a 5, there should be a white dot, and there isn't a white dot. So this has to be 6, I suppose, and that's 7, and that's 2. Okay, now I can see, look, we've got 2, 7, 2, 7 there, so we've got to put 2s and... Oh, hang on. We've got to put 2s and 7s in this box, and there's no white dots. So we've got to keep the 2 and 7 apart, because otherwise 2 and 7, obviously, they add up to 9, and they should have a white dot between them. So this can't be a 2 or a 7. The 2 and the 7 have to be separated. And now, we've got a 2 there, so that's got to be a 7. That's got to be a 2. Eight's got to live in one of these squares by Sudoku. 8's got to live in one of these squares by Sudoku. So, okay. But look, we've got something similar going on now in this column, because I've either got to put 1 or 5 up here, and there's no white dots separating the horizontal borders, and there's no grey dots, and 1 and 8 add up to 9, and 5 and 8 add up to 13. So I can never put the 8 in the middle of that. If I put 8 here, I can put a 3 on one side of it, but the other side would have to be a 1 or a 5, and that would break the puzzle. So this is not 8. So if this is 8, yeah, okay. Yeah, and whichever way round you put the 8, whether it's here or here, it always has to be hidden from the 1 and the 5. So the 3 must always separate it from the 1 or the 5. So this has to be the 3. So this is a 1, there's 1, 5 and 8 there. The 3 is here, that means there's a 3 up there, look. Okay, and we've got a 2 on a black dot. Not sure, maybe I'm meant to, is that what I'm meant to do now? Try and work out the value of the black dots? Let me just have a quick stare at this from a Sudoku perspective. Just see if there's anything obvious. So this... Oh, yeah. Look, if we look along here, I've got to place 2, 3, 6 and 7 in the row. But this is a grey dot. So this can't be a 2 or a 3, so it must be a 6 or a 7. And once it's a 6 or a 7, it needs a friend. This is a 6-7 pair. You need to add to 13. That means there's a 6 and a 7 on one of these two dominoes. 6, 7. Five. Sorry about this. Just a second. Let me try and spot something. I find the hardest thing about these puzzles is spotting negative constraints. It's not so bad once... You know, it's not that hard to see, okay, these have all got to add up to 9. It's really hard, or at least I find it hard, to see whether numbers can't go. You know, things like that not being able to be a 4. You can see it once you really focus on it, but it doesn't come naturally. Yeah, and in fact, look, this 7 is very... Oh, in fact, this 7 is hugely powerful on the central box. And that's so peculiar, because this 7 it obviously can't see those squares by Sudoku rules, the normal Sudoku rules. But look, we can't put a 7 there, because it would be next to a 2, and there should be a white dot, and there isn't. We can't put a 7 here, because there should be a grey dot, because it's next to a 6. And we can't put a 7 here, because this is a white dot, and therefore it would have to have a 2 next to it. And it can't. So the 7 lives in one of those cells in the central box, and both of those have white dots on them. So there must be a 2 in one of those squares. And that's, oh, look, that gives us, that square is a 7 all of a sudden. That's a 2. 2's 2's, there's a 2, oh, no, there's a 2 in one of those two cells. 1, look, that can't be a 1, I've just spotted that. 2. So now this square's got to be 3, 6 or 7 to complete the row. Okay, so maybe I do have to look at the black dots then. This square, look, that's got a white dot next to it. This add up to 9, so that's either got to be 7 or 8. So let's think about the black dots then. So this, well, this can't be a 1 because if these add to 3, I can't make that one add up to 3. Can't be a 2, can't be a 3, 3's ruled out, so 2, 4, 2, 4 with a 2 there would mean this one would have to be 1, 5. That one would have to be 2, 4, that one would have to be 2, 4. Well, that's not immediately failing, so I think 2, 4 is a possibility, 2, 5. So these would add up to 7. Now that's interesting. Look, this black dot rules out 7 because it can't be 1, 6, it can't be 2, 5, and it can't be 3, 4 in this box. So this is not 2, 5. And it works the same way with 8. If I try and put a 6 here and make the black dot add up to 8, that's a problem. 1, 7, 2, 6, 3, 5 are all ruled out from this black dot. So maybe this is fruitful. So this is not 2, 6. It's not 2, 7. So it's, and it's not 2, 8. The 8 is over here. So can this be 2, 9? 11 would be the total. No, it can't. This black dot rules out 11 because it rules out 2, 9, 3, 8, 5, 6 and 4, 7. So actually I think this has to be 2, 4. I think that's what that's telling me. So this has to be 1, 5. This now can't be 1, 5. It would rule out that one. So that's 2, 4. If that's 2, 4, look, there's a 9 there. So this can't be 2 because that would put a 7 here. So this has to be 4. This has to be 2. That places a 2 there. That places a 7 there by the white dot rule. This has got to be a 5 to make those add up to 9, and that fixes a 5 and a 1, and that gives us a 6, 8 pair over on this side of the grid. And maybe we're suddenly on the right track. 6. Yeah, the 6 down here creates a 6, 8 pair there. Oh no, why have I got 6s? No, it doesn't at all. The 6 is there. What am I talking about? No, the 4. That gives me a 4 there. That's better. And this is an 8, 9 pair. Oops. And the 4 here means that can't be a 9, because if it was a 9, it would be next to a 4, and it would be 13, and there should be a grey dot. So this is an 8. This is a 9. Now, by Sudoku, that's got to be a 9, I think. 6. Oh, there's got to be a 6 in one of... Oh, yeah, look. There's got to be a 6 in one of these two squares. Well, it can't be in that one, because then it would be next to a 7 and would need a grey dot. So this square's a 6. This one's got to be 1, 5, or... it can't be 8. 1 or 5. Is there a negative constraint? No. Okay, so... So this one's got to be 2 and 4 as well, because there's a 2 already pencil marked in there, and it can't be 1, 5 down there. So this is 2, 4, therefore this can't be 4 and 5, so this can't be 1 and 8. This one has to be 1, 5, because it can't be 2, 4. Okay. 6, 8 here, look, means that's a 7, and that's part of a... That means that's a 2, that's a 1. The 1 fixes this one. 5, 1, 5. This 2 fixes the 2 and the 4 down there, look. 6. Oh, the 2 can't be next to a 7 because there's no white dot. So again, this negative constraint keeps mattering. Now those squares there have got to be, what's that got to be? 3, 5 and 9. Let's put that in. So these two have got to be 1 and 6. Seven here means this is a 3, that's a 6, that's a 3. Those squares have got to be 7, 8 and 9, I think. We might be able to, yes, we can rule out 7 from this one and 7 from this one by the negative constraint. So this must be a 7. That plonks a 7 up at the top of the grid by Sudoku. No 3 here. And, okay, let's have a look at this row. We still need 2, 3 and 9 to complete this row. So that square's got to be a 2 or a 3. In fact, it has to be a 2 because the 2 here fixes it. This is a 3, 9 pair. The 3 here fixes that. So we get the 3 and the 9. We get the 3 at the top. 1, 6 and 8 into those squares. We know that this must be the 1 and the 8. So that gives us a 6. 1, 8 there. 8s are locked into the same two columns. So 8 must be in one of those 3 squares. And 8 can't be part of the black dot, because with black dots add up to 6. So that gives us an 8. That gives us an 8. That gives us a 1. This has to be 6 and 7 because it can't be 4, 9 or 5, 8 now. And there's a 7 there, so we know the order. We get a 7 and a 6. So these two have to be 5 and 8. Let's fill that in. 5, 8. And those two have got to be 4 and 9, which we know the order of. 4, 9, that square's a 7, that square's a 5. That fixes the 5 and the 4. This is a 2-4 pair, which we can fill in. These squares now need a 1, a 6, and a 9, which we can, I think, we can't quite do it, but I bet you there's a negative constraint. There is. There's a 7 there. So this can't be 6. That's got to be 9. That's got to be 6. The 9 and the 8 get fixed in that order. The 8 and the 1 get fixed. The 1 and the 6 get fixed. These two squares have got to be 3 and 4, and we can see that's all doable now. 3 must live here. 5, 9 is resolved by the 9 at the top. 6, 8 here. We're just left with what looks like a deadly pattern, but I bet you there's a negative constraint that will fix it. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. It's about the last one I looked at. So this can't be a 5, because if it was, there should be a white dot, and there isn't. I mean, it's just a staggering example of how to set something using a negative constraint, isn't it? Let's hope that says it's good. It does say it's good. So I think that's the solution. Another brilliant puzzle from Richard Stolk. Let me know in the comments how you got on with it. We'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.